And we are live. Hi, everybody. I am happy to be here today, along with Greg and with Dave Jesch from also ServerPress. He's the guy who knows everything there is to know about WP SiteSync,
Almost everything.
which is what we're going to be covering today. Almost everything, yeah. There's you got
Greg
to always
knows
leave.
more. He does. Greg knows
Well,
more. He does more testing.
and you got to always leave that gray area, right? Nobody knows
Oh,
everything, not even
right.
the guy who wrote all the code. So.
I
Welcome
just
to the
write the code. That
podcast.
doesn't mean I understand it.
Right, right. Well, I wouldn't say that too loud though. Um, welcome to the show. I am Mark. I'm the operations guy here at ServerPress. Along with me, as I said, are Greg. Or don't say hi.
Hi.
All right. All right.
You
There we
cut out
go.
for a little bit.
Oh, I cut. Okay, I was saying everybody say hi. So I don't know why I cut
Okay.
out.
Hi.
Um, Gotta love technology. So just a few things to get out of the way. First, our chat guidelines. As always, I've posted them in the YouTube chat, but also I will say them out loud. Be civil and respectful. Remember beings behind the keyboards and cameras. And then there's Dave, who is like from another planet, but that's a different story. Be helpful if you can. Feel free to pitch in. This is a community, so help. Stepping in to help is always appreciated. And Greg, Dave, and I reserve the right to boot. Some of the rules are not followed. Couple of announcements. First, in the WordPress news, if you have not been up to speed on things, there's this thing called Gutenberg, and Rian Reitveld wrote a resignation blog post yesterday, which was very fascinating, talking about how she was stepping down from the accessibility team for Gutenberg, and she's one of the team leads, and she's actually pretty awesome. So it's well worth the read, and it'll give you a little bit of insight in the behind the scenes things going on there. I know Greg and Dave, you've read that, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Did you find it as fascinating as I did first thing in the morning yesterday?
I don't know about fascinating, but it was definitely an interesting read.
Yeah. Okay. Well, fascinating, interesting.
It's
Um,
relative.
Yeah, relative.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I recommend you guys read that. It was really good. It was a good read. I'm not going to offer my opinion on it, but I do recommend that everybody read it for their own edification and to know what's going on in the world of Gutenberg currently. We have a new version of WP SiteSync, which is going to be released next week. We're in the late stages of testing on that, and everything's looking really good. So expect to see a new release on the repo next week, and we will be making an announcement about that when it's available. We are in the early testing phases on a DSCLI update for desktop server. The latest release of Node, the latest release of Composer, latest WP CLI, and latest Git and latest PHP unit. So keep an eye out for that. We may be setting that up for some beta testing in the next couple. Well. And then lastly, WordCamp Riverside, November 4th and 5th. This one is near and dear to us because both Greg and I will be there. Greg is one of the organizers, and I will be doing a presentation. And then I'm also going to be on a speaker panel with the one and only Steve Zingott, who is really, and I actually look forward to learning from him on that speaker panel. We're also sponsoring WordCamp Riverside, and tickets are still available. And I guarantee you it'll be the best $40 you ever spent. WordCamps are always worth the $40 just because of the education and contacts and free food that you get, or included food, I should say.
Come see us.
Yeah, come see us. Come find us. We will be there wandering around and talking. So we always like talking and meeting people in person all the time. Uh, so let's get into WP SiteSync. What is WP SiteSync? WP SiteSync is a plugin that you can add to WordPress, and it's free on the repo, and it allows you to target content for synchronization between two sites. So if you're going from your locally developed site to a live site, you can synchronize your data. If you're going from a your live site, you can, or if you're going from a live site to live site, you can actually synchronize targeted data like post pages, custom post types, that type of thing. So it's what we call a surgical tool that allows you to find specific data that you want synchronized between two sites. It is not a full deployment tool. So once you're completely deployed, this is a tool that you want to use for your updates and things like that. It is free in the repo. So if you just type in WPSiteSync in the WordPress repo, you can download it and immediately start synchronizing your posts and pages. And of course, it's extensible with a number of premium extensible plugins that we've created that allow you to do more. And we are constantly doing that. So I am going to turn it over to Greg and let him start the demo. So let me make sure that Greg is on screen first.
Am I on screen?
And Greg is on screen.
Okay, so it's always fun doing a live demo, so who knows what might break, but we'll see how it all goes. The first thing I did is I created two sites. I created a target site, a source site, and a target site. And right now, you can see this is the dashboard of WordPress. And I went ahead and used our admin color bar tool to make the source site red, and I left the target site blue. So it's really easy to recognize which one we're on when we're working on this. And I went up to the repository and grabbed a WPSiteSync for content, and it is currently active on both the source and the target. And the next thing you'd want to do is go into settings, and under settings, there's WPSiteSync. And you would enter in the name of your target site. So in my case, we're doing this all locally, but you could, of course, deploy up to a live site. You could, sync up to a live site. You could sync between two sites, like a staging and a production, or anything between two sites. So we're going to kind of talk about this as a source and a target. And so on my case, with it being local.
I just want to interrupt here. We should point out that this tool does work great with desktop server, but you don't have to use desktop server for your local environment if you don't want to. It'll work between any two WordPress sites.
Yep. So in my case, I've set up a target site called wpss-target.devs.cc, and then I've entered my username and I've entered my password. When you enter the password and click Save Changes, you'll see a little green check mark appear that'll indicate that you're connected to your target. And then there's a few other additional settings down below where you can do strict mode, which lets you, if the WordPress and WPSiteSync for content match the source and target versions, and whether that's important, you can turn that on or off. And then the content match mode, you can have it so it'll match either the post title or the, what was the other one? Oh, the slug. So either the post title or the slug. And then below that, it now has, this has been recently added where it allows you to choose the roles that you want WPSiteSync to work with. And as you add plugins that have additional roles, those list. So not only besides administrator, editor, author, contributor, but in this particular install, I added EDD, which has a shop. And I see that there's shop. But even plugins like Role Manager, where you can create your own roles, those can start populating in this list also. The last part is just that when you're doing, if you were to uninstall WPSiteSync, it will remove the settings out of the database. So then you would just save the changes, which I've done, and that goes ahead and activates it. So I'm all good now. So let's go ahead and work. WPSiteSync works with posts and pages. So let's go into pages first, and I'll show you. I've created a couple demo pages here, page 1, 2, and 3. So let's go in there. And after you've created a page and published it, you'll see this new box up here on the right that says WPSiteSync. And it says push content to, and it's going to give the name of the target site. There is some more details, a little arrow box, some more content details. If you click on that, it's going to give you some more information. Let's go ahead and close that up. And you can see here that we've got our blue button for pushing to target. Pulling is not blue, and that's because that is an extended add-on that you can get to do pull of a content, but we're going to push it for now. So I'm going to go ahead. You can see this article contains a video and this particular page. So we'll go ahead and push this to target. You're going to get a little indicator that it's pushing, and it's going to say content success. And let's go take a look. Remember, this is page 1. So if we come over here and look in pages now on our target, there's our page 1. We're going to edit. You can see it pushed over all the content, including the video. There's our video dropping in. It also will go ahead and push over the status, the visibility, the published date. We could have changed those up over there also when it gets pushed over. Let's go ahead and also do a push on a post so you can see that. So here is a post 1. And just to show you over here, there's no posts. So our target has no posts on it right now. Let's come back to here. And this article, we've got an image, and we've also got a featured image over here. Let's go ahead and add a new category, just so you can see that also. New cat. Category. And let's add a tag too. Pirate. There we go. And let's go ahead and push to target. Okay, content successful. Let's come back over here and reload this page. There's our new one. If we go into edit, there's our image. Our content came over. We can see that, interesting. I didn't see the tag and the categories come over. We'll have to check that. There's our featured image. Let me refresh this page. Yeah, we'll have to check that. Okay, so let's come back over here. And let's see, let's go ahead and turn on some other plugins. Dave, did you have any other comments about the WPSiteSync for Content plugin beyond what the other plugins can do at this point?
Just to add that in addition to all the information about the post status, and all the categories and everything, all the metadata that's associated with that post, all the images that are embedded in the content, the featured image, all that information is collected up and sent over to the target site. So rather than copying and pasting and moving images and doing all of that yourself, WPSiteSync takes all of that, packages it up, and sends it over in one single click. So it makes the process really, really easy.
And that applies to custom fields too, doesn't it, Dave?
Yeah, any metadata, custom fields, metadata, the same thing. All of that information, all the taxonomies, everything that's associated with that post.
Cool. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on poll, which is a plugin itself. So we'll go ahead and activate that on both systems, both the source and the target. And these require licenses. So let's go ahead and activate the licenses. Okay, that one's already active for us. Let's take a look at the other one.
And Andy Carter has a question about ACF fields. ACF is stored as metadata. So the normal plain old WPSiteSync that's in the repository handles all the metadata. But if you're using ACF to store information about images or related posts or anything else that has an ID, you'll need to use our ACF, our WPSiteSync for Advanced Custom Fields plugin to collect all that information and correctly move the ID information over to the target site. We're not currently working with ACF Pro, but if you're using ACF, that does work.
Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm on the target right now, and I'm going to make a change to this page 1. We'll just come in and put in this is a change. And we'll go ahead and update this. Let's come back over to our source and let's go to page 1. And since we turned on the pull plugin, you'll now see that the button is blue. And we're going to go ahead and say pull. It's going to ask us what page we want to pull over. We know this is page 1, so we're going to go ahead and do a search for that. There it is. Select it and then pull selected content. I'm going to close that. And there it is. So it's very easy to go ahead and push and pull content back and forth between our posts and pages. Let me show you some other plugins. So the other thing a lot of folks use are custom post types. So we're going to go ahead and try that one next. We're going to turn on WPSiteSync for custom post types on both the source and target. And I'm also going to go ahead and turn on Testimonials plugin by Woo Themes that has a custom post type in it. And we need to turn on, we need to set the licensing for that also. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and create a testimonial over here on the source. And let's go ahead and publish this. And right now over here, if we take a look, we have no testimonials. And we're going to go ahead and push this to target. And let's go ahead and refresh. And there it is. Now, I'm not sure how the testimonial details are stored, but let's go ahead and give it a shot and see how those are stored. There we go. So they are stored as metadata, so they came right over for us. And let's go back over here and let's see what other plugins we can turn on. Let's activate WPSiteSync for bulk actions on both systems.
And explain the purpose of bulk actions, Greg.
You bet. So bulk actions, we've been pushing single pages and single posts. With bulk actions, we can do multiples, which is what we're going to do next. We do need to set a license key for this also.
So a perfect example is, let's say that you're, I don't know, on an airplane and you've written like 5 blog posts, and which is more than most of us do on an airplane. But let's say you've done it
over a year,
right? And you've written a bunch of blog posts, and you didn't have you paid for that really wonderful Wi-Fi on the airplane, and finally decided that you just wanted to do it all locally. So you've created these blog posts all locally. Well, when you get to where you have a solid internet connection, you can use this bulk action plugin and send them all up and synchronize them with basically one synchronization operation.
So right now I'm on the page screen, the list of all pages, and I'm going to go ahead and check these 3 pages, and I can go ahead and push those all to the target. Remember, the only page we have over here right now on the target, I believe, is just the first one, page 1. So we're going to push all 3 right now. So if we come over and refresh, I'll let us play.
Greg, your audio is getting kind of choppy.
Yeah, it got really choppy there. You might want to repeat the last
and I think
sentences.
the video is also lagging behind what you're saying.
I don't know about that.
I'll give it a second, see if it clears up.
Maybe it'll catch up.
Yeah. Hangouts has been kind of glitchy today. Yeah.
Does anyone have any other questions?
Think Delaney asked.
We're just seeing your avatar now, not the screen.
Yeah, there we go.
There's the screen.
Think Delaney wants to know if it works with Elementor.
It's on the roadmap, but it does not at this time. It does work with Beaver Builder, which is the next one we can activate.
Now, if you've developed a site in Elementor and you have it up and everything, when you do your posts or when you do your pages and posts, you can still use it and it'll still work correctly as far as synchronizing posts and pages, correct?
It will work unless you're using Elementor on the page and
Itself.
Again, relating to a bunch of information about other blogs and posts and images, anything with an ID.
Mm-hmm.
If it's just data, some CSS or a button or just things that don't need an ID or some other element within WordPress, that's where we run into problems. That's where we have to have custom code that goes and looks up that ID and attaches that to the information being moved from the source to the target.
Mm-hmm.
So for simple pages, it'll probably work just fine. But if you start getting really complex and using images, then you need to have the WPSiteSync for Elementor plugin when that's released.
And I guess that's a good thing, Dave, for you to explain to folks is that the WPSiteSync works with posts and pages and their metadata, but that many other plugins create other data that's not necessarily part of the post and post meta.
Yeah, if you're using custom database tables, like WooCommerce does create some custom tables, and one of the next versions is going to have all the product and sales data in custom tables. So we're going to have to add that information to the WPSiteSync for WooCommerce so that it knows where to go find that data and collect that all up and add it to the data that's being moved to the target site. So it gets a little bit complicated when things are not stored the normal WordPress way. Anything outside of that requires custom code to add that in and make sure it all is moved over and then synced up correctly on the target site.
So I did a really quick example of just a Beaver Builder page. All I put was a single element from Beaver and pushed it from the target to from the source to the target, and as you can see, that came right over without any problems.
Okay, and Jeff Miller is asking what the time frame is for Elementor support.
That's always a tough question to answer, isn't it?
Our favorite question, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. We have a couple of site builders that we're working on first. Beaver Builder is one of them, and Divi is the next one. I don't remember if Elementor is the next site builder after that. I can't remember what our timeline is right now. I have my head in other stuff, unfortunately. So we don't really have an estimate for when we're going to have that.
Stay tuned.
Yeah, stay tuned. But it is definitely, I think that it is the one that's right after Divi. That is the one that we're planning to do.
I think so too. I know Greg is a big fan of it. He's been really pushing for it. And we try to keep Greg happy.
Yeah. Actually, I remember Greg has actually been pushing for it before most of us even knew what Elementor was. So
this is true.
Yeah.
Another one we have coming very shortly that's actually waiting. We're working very closely with Easy Digital Downloads, and they have a new version coming, version 3. And they have provided us with a beta and allowed us to go ahead and build out an extension for that. Currently, WPSiteSync has 2 custom post types that we turn off, basically. One is products, and the other is, what is the other one? Products and downloads. And we address those because WooCommerce and EDD are using those custom post types, and they require more customization. So those are being addressed there. You can use Easy Digital Downloads 3, and as soon as it's released, we'll also be releasing WPSiteSync for Easy Digital Downloads. Some other ones that we have available are WPSiteSync for authors. And that's going to pass along the author from the source to the target. I believe it actually, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, Dave, it'll actually create the author on the target if it doesn't already exist.
Yeah, if you're not using the authors add-on, then it will assign the authorship of the page or post on the target site to the user that's used to authenticate. So using author lets you push a post from Susie, and then you see Susie on the target site. It creates the user on the target site, so it can attribute that post to Susie instead of your name or the WPSiteSync authentication username.
Cool. The other ones that we have are, sync for menus, so that you can go ahead and sync a menu over to the target also. If you're a Genesis user and you use the Genesis theme, the Genesis settings within that theme can be pushed over to the target site. And then there is 2 others that are kind of interesting. One is the HTTP authentication, WPSiteSync HTTP authentication. If you're using something where you're using htaccess general authentication and protecting a site with it, we can still go ahead and publish and sync up to that site by using this particular plugin.
That's really useful if you have a staging site where you're consolidating data and everything from multiple users on local sites. So you want to push up to a staging site that's protected with those htaccess rules. Now you can get through that htaccess with your WPSiteSync pushing.
And let's see, the other one I wanted, Dave, if you wouldn't mind talking a little bit more about the WPSiteSync for auto publish.
Okay. That allows you to set that up so that when you create a post, you can save it as a draft or just hit the publish button. And then that plugin will take that change from something besides published to published. And when it sees a page or a post being set to published now, it'll push that automatically up to your target. So it's really good if you're creating new blog posts or new pages and you just automatically want to have those pushed to the target site. I should point out that it's not going to push any changes after that initial push. So you can continue editing and working on that content, and it's not going to push any new changes to it. You'll have to do the push manually at that point.
I see.
We are working on thinking about working on another plugin that will automatically synchronize any changes on the source site to the target site. But we need to plan exactly how we want that to work, because we might need to set up some rules so that some users' changes don't get pushed, but your changes do get pushed. We need to figure out exactly how we want that to behave so that it's easy to understand and use it.
And that's one of the things that's also very interesting about the WPSiteSync for WooCommerce is that the WooCommerce, it basically touches the product, but it doesn't touch things like reviews and orders and things like that. One of the reasons that one is going to be very, very popular is that sometimes people want to make changes to a particular product, but it's difficult to do that because of the fact that it usually would affect orders. So,
well, all that's stored in different tables as well. So, we could do WP SiteSync for products, and then also do customers and orders and sales and all the sales data, and it's all separate information. So it's a matter of how far down that rabbit hole we want to go in collecting up all that data and moving it from the source site to the target site.
Mark, did you want to go into any other? Did you want to see any more of the plugins? Do you have any other thoughts? What would you like to do next?
Oh, I was monitoring the chat. I think you've covered quite a bit. Did you, let's see, did you do anything with the Genesis settings at all?
I did not, but I can. So let's go ahead. I'll go ahead and go to Appearance and Themes, and let's activate Genesis. And I need to do the same over on Target. And we need to turn on the plugin. Set the licensing.
And as you can see, Dave designed all of this to make it as easy as can be, as far as just a click and you're done. So the idea is to not have to navigate to a million different screens or do anything. You just push the button and you get it done. And I think he's done a really good job of that.
Yeah, I want to make it so that like your car, right? You just put the key in and start it and drive down the road, but you don't know how the engine works. You don't know how half of the things under the hood work. It's just magic, but it works.
Right.
That's the goal anyway.
Yeah, right.
So here's the Genesis settings. We would just come in and make any changes that you want to. And let's see, we'll just go to a full page. we'll say an image logo, enable breadcrumbs. We'll just throw this on some things here. These on, click a featured image, and we'll just come down and we'll save changes. Dave, they may have changed something. I don't see sync button any longer.
Did you turn on the plugin on the source?
I thought
Activate
so.
it?
Let me make absolutely sure.
Yeah, that's the first thing I would double check.
Yes, it is. We're gonna have to check that one and see what's going on with that.
Yeah, they must have updated something.
They might have updated the CSS,
Yeah.
which make your button disappear.
Yeah, that's one of the things that we've noticed in doing this, especially for things like Beaver Builder. They have updates quite often, and every update or so, every other update, they make some changes to their CSS, and then our buttons don't show up anymore, so we have to add changes so that we work with the latest release. So it's always kind of a catch-up thing. We got to make sure that we stay on top of their release schedule and make changes so that the plugin continues to work.
Right.
So I also wanted to point out underneath settings, if you go to WPSiteSync, there is an extensions tab. And in that extensions tab, it's going to show all the different available extensions. And you can also go up to the WPSiteSync site to see the extensions there. I'll show you that in just a moment.
Andy Carter asks, does the push work okay with security plugins and protected login like Google CAPTCHA, etc.?
That's a great question. I love the security stuff. So the answer is Google CAPTCHA would not be a problem because we don't use the normal login page. We go through an API. As long as that API is accessible, we can get that authentication. We store a token, and then that token's used for later synchronization requests. Security plugins like WordFence and iTheme security, those kinds of things, we've done a lot of testing with that. We do work, but with WordFence in particular, you need to put it into what's called learning mode so that it kind of gets a feel for what source site is contacting the target site, so that it knows that it's a safe site. You put it in learning mode, and then you can do a couple of pushes and say, allow these types of contact, and then it'll work just fine. And then Joshua is asking.
Joshua is confirming what you say.
Does with Google CAPTCHA, because we're not using the login page, we're using an API.
Right.
There are, however, other plugins besides WordFence and iThemes. So if you're using one of those, let us know if you have trouble, and we'll try to see if we can figure out what the problem is and make ourselves compatible with that plugin.
Cool. All right, and looks like Greg, did you cover everything you wanted to cover, Greg?
I did.
Okay. Are there any other questions? You got Dave here to answer anything. Ask him anything you want. Anything.
Well, yeah, I may not answer everything, but
I like putting Dave on the hot seat. And
yeah,
by the way,
do.
Dave works for coffee.
That is one of my driving forces, yes.
Yes. So Douglas Howard asks, what about Duplicator?
Duplicator, that's the migration tool, right?
Correct.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the question.
Yeah.
Is he referring to Duplicator with WP SiteSync, or is he referring to Duplicator with Desktop Server?
Pulling the backups into ServerPress. Oh, so you're talking about ServerPress and Duplicator.
Yeah,
okay.
Douglas, the 392, the latest release with the latest release of Clean Import resolves the issues with Duplicator. Duplicator recently changed the way they do things. One of the things they did was rename the WP config file. They rename it to WP config and a date and some other things. And then they also moved the database into its own folder. So we have to do a little more massaging now to get it into desktop server.
So are you using the latest version, Douglas, 392? Because that was a change that was made between 391 and 392. And while we're waiting for that, does anyone else have any other questions?
Well, Duplicator does bring up an interesting point with WPSiteSync. So maybe we can dive into that.
All right.
Duplicator is a migration tool, so it's going to move your entire WordPress database from one point to another. So that's how you can deploy your site. It and any other of these migration tools, they can be used with WPSiteSync. But when you're moving that database, you should exclude the WPSiteSync database tables. We write information about the source site ID and the target site ID on both ends. So if you want to move that site, you can just exclude those tables so that WPSiteSync's data in tracking where things are and where things are coming from, that doesn't get overridden. And it looks like Douglas Howard is using 391.
Yeah.
So definitely upgrade to 392. It's got some good stuff in there for that.
Hi, Sunny. In answer to your question, yes, this will be saved. Assuming nobody says anything offensive and I don't have to do any crazy video editing, it'll be up on YouTube on our channel, which you should all subscribe to very soon. And subscribe to, turn on notifications.
Hit all the buttons.
And upvote everything and never hit the thumbs down button ever and all that stuff. But yeah, it'll be available. What's that?
Way to plug it.
That's my job.
Yeah.
So well, thank you, Doug. That's really, can we call you Doug or do you prefer Douglas? Anyway, thank you very much. We love you too. And actually we love all you guys. This is why we do the show. So we find this to be a great way to interact with people in between WordCamps and in between customer service requests and all of that. And Douglas says I can call him Doug. All right, awesome. So
we can talk a little bit about some of our coming soon features and plugins for WPSiteSync.
Yeah, Dave has go for it.
Got a long list of these.
Dave has a long list of things, and sometimes he surprises us with them, which is always nice.
Yeah, yeah. One of the things we want to do is scheduling, and also setting up a collection of posts and pages and custom post types and users and anything that WPSiteSync can synchronize. We can collect all those into a single block, a group of items, and then push that together. And then we want to be able to schedule that. So that way you'll be able to create new content and posts and say, I want all this to be published on Thursday night before the Black Friday sale. And have all that new content go out when you're having turkey instead of working on your computer. So that's the idea behind it. Those two, I think, would work really well together so that you can create a block of content and put all that, package it all together, and then push that on a scheduled basis. So those are going to be really interesting when we can get to those. Greg, do you have any future features that you can think of?
We talked about, I mean, some people are looking for like a WPML for doing translations, which is going to be difficult, but that's one of the things we talked about.
Yeah, that's becoming more and more popular.
Yeah, and multi-target, we've seen that where folks who want to go from a single source to multiple sites.
Yeah, I forgot about that one too. Thanks.
And then this is a desktop server thing, and I'm bringing it up only because Dave brought this up once as a plugin that he wants to write, a design time plugin that he wants to write, which is, I granted, probably not super high priority, but it's such a cool idea, which is your checklist idea, right? You remember?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, deployment checklist.
The deployment checklist. So desktop server would have built into it a deployment checklist that automatically checks things off for you as you complete things, so that you'll know when you're ready for deployment, and it'll be all part of the whole deployment ability built within desktop server. So I'm kind of excited about that one because I'm very absent-minded and checklists come in very handy. So
yeah, but this is even better because you don't have to create it. We'll do it for you.
I know. I like it when things tell me what to do and do things for me. So, so Sunny asks, what about an AI integration that allows me to talk to it and let it build the custom sites rather than me? That's a Steve question, and believe it or not, I think in the back of his mind somewhere, he's got that in his brain, because
He's
bet he
probably working on that.
yeah,
Yeah.
Steve is the robot maker. He wants to automate everything. He wants to automate all the things. So
Sure.
yeah. So anyway,
Uh,
so you think that's a
and
funny question, but it may not be as funny as you think. That's my point.
yeah,
So integration of
and
Dreamweaver.
is that a desktop server question again?
Because
Um, it,
desktop
Because
server
we
does
do
have a,
have integration of
yeah,
yeah, we've
Dreamweaver.
got a
yeah,
plugin for that.
yes. Yeah, Doug, we do have a plugin for integration of Dreamweaver built into desktop server. So, well, everybody likes the checklist idea.
Yeah, that's encouraging.
I'm not the only one who's excited about it. So,
Yeah, but it's only what plus 345,000.
what's
That's
that?
not that. Just as I think Delaney says, plus
Oh,
345,000. So
yeah,
that's not all that much.
yeah. So
If they can tease, we can tease back, right? That's
that's
allowed.
a little bit. It's allowed. Yeah, as long as it's
Okay.
respectful. Otherwise, I have to boot you because I said that earlier. So.
Yeah, that's right. And you
Eh,
do have authority to boot me.
That's right. And by the way, this is how our daily production meetings go too, in case you're wondering what goes
Yes.
on behind the scenes. So,
Yes.
um, yeah. So, Sunny, there's probably more than one brain that thinks like you. And yeah, Steve is going back to Steve and his desire to automate all the things. Yeah, it's really quite amazing to see some of the things that he brings to the meetings that he wants to work on. So, yeah.
There's a couple other little tiny things I guess we could talk about, little scripts that we're probably going to be mentioning in the future. But one of them is Dave just finished working on a repair script where in some cases we have seen the preferences file, which is where desktop server stores all of its site information, the DB name, the username, the password, and all that kind of thing. It can get damaged, and if it gets damaged, if you have a lot of sites, it takes a little bit of time to recreate that preferences file. And Dave has written a tool, a script that goes through and creates that preferences file for you again very easily. There's also another script called getdbinfo, which I've worked on, that allows you to upload that to a site and be able to get the information so that you can fill in, if you're using desktop server's quick deploy, it's a way to grab the information those fields that are needed and enter that information in and send it. So a couple little script things that we've messed around with that are coming your way too.
Cool. And thanks. Wow, we're getting a lot of love today. I'm liking this broadcast. I almost don't want it to end. So does anyone else have any other questions regarding WP SiteSync, WordPress, desktop server, Greg's life, my life, Dave's life?
Nobody cares about my life.
Dave lives in Idaho. Dave lives in Idaho.
Yeah.
So, and we were talking
I
about,
exited California.
yeah. So for those of you who thought Dave was living in Orange County, living the high life, he's actually living the. It's about to be winter there right now, so that'll be fun.
It's coming soon. It's getting down to the 30s already at night now.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, well, if there are no more questions, then I think we can wrap this up. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We will have show notes up soon. We actually have Aaron doing show notes on a regular basis, and they'll be up soon. And of course, if you have any questions, feel free to email us and let us know. Let us know what you'd like to see on a future episode too, because we like to give you guys what you want. So thank you very much, and we will see you next week.
And if you have any ideas or feature requests or new plugins to support for WPSiteSync or Desktop Server for that matter, please let us know. We're always looking to add new things to our task list and roadmap.
Right.
We may not get to it next week, but we do want to do everything we can with both of these products and make them as good as they can be.
Yeah. Yeah. And feature requests at serverpress.com is where you can email us feature requests, by the way. And Sunny says that she's on the border of Idaho. Dave.
A
So
neighbor.
a neighbor. Yeah. So that's one of the cool
Awesome.
things. That's one of the cool things about working in this business is you have almost wherever you live, you have neighbors. So it's pretty cool. So, and we can go to almost any country in the world and have neighbors. So that's nice too. So, all right. Well, thank you guys. Have a great day, and we will see you next week. And with that, I am going offline along with Greg and Dave.